You're listening to another episode of Top Shelf Creator. On today's episode, I talked with Heather Eck, who is a multimedia abstract artist and spirit portrait artist. An intuitive artist and painter, Heather interprets people, places, and experiences through color, a condition known as synesthesia. Sorry, it's hard to pronounce, but it's an amazing thing that you're going to find all out about during this episode. But like an enormous box of crayons, her gift operates by categorizing through intricate but specific shades of color. While this condition enables her to experience color, she responds to these encounters with people, things, emotions, and spaces by understanding the particular shade of experience that a person dwells in. She uses her gift to detect the most healing color for them to remedy their wounds. Guided by the chakra system and inspired by spirituality and the mysteries of the universe, Heather transforms these vibrant energies into captivating paintings that uplift, inspire, and ultimately heal. Each canvas becomes a symphony of color and emotion, a visual representation of the unseen connections that weave through our lives. Heather's work is more than art, it's a medium of healing, a testament to the profound influence of color on our well being. And if you're a little skeptical of color theory and all of these things, can I just say that this was such a fun episode? And we talked about so many amazing things, one of which was this idea of truly knowing yourself. And we go into depth of what does that look like? How do we truly know ourselves? What does that even mean for us? And Heather and I go back and forth on a very fun conversation that is an adventure in and of itself. So let's go ahead and get started. Get ready to discover the best way to create a thriving business online from other creators and entrepreneurs just like you, who are making a full-time living doing what they love. I'm Cabrina Ashley, and as a former Disney trainer and consultant, I'm here to guide you in telling the right stories so you can be seen and heard by your ideal clients. Each week, join me in conversations with industry leaders as we unveil the keys to crafting a sustainable business that helps you more than survive, but thrive. This is the first creator podcast to give you clarity, help you position yourself in the market, and harness your influence to scale your community. Welcome to the Top Shelf Creator Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Top Shelf Creator. I am here with Heather Eck, who I actually met in a Facebook group from a program that both of us are in. And she was talking about her art stuff. And then I went and stalked her because that's what you do when you work on the internet. You stalk people on the internet. And so I was enthralled with everything that she was doing and all the things that she was talking about. So I was like, please come and be on my podcast. And she so graciously has decided to come and do that with us. So, Heather, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I am an artist and I am based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I have something called synesthesia, which basically means that when I take in music or eat something or smell something, my brain sort of converts what that sensation is into color for me. And and so basically, for the last couple of years, I have been painting for people what I see for them when I encounter them. And I create something called a spirit portrait for them, which sort of shows me where in their body they dwell. And I've been doing that full time now since 2019.
That's amazing. So, when you were growing up, when did you first realize that you had this gift?
So it takes me back to a memory when I was probably like 11 or 12, laying on my bedroom floor, listening to the soundtrack from a movie called The Piano. I don't know if you remember this. It came out like in the
Yeah.
90s, and I was drawing on the sketch pad what I saw the music looked like. And at the time, I didn't know what synesthesia was. I didn't know that it had a name. Really, I didn't know until a couple of years ago. But I remember being a kid and having this desire to change the color of my bedroom at least once a month, like driving my parents crazy with that, and drawing what I could see, and also sort of seeing choreography play out in my mind when we're driving down the road and I'm listening to music. So it's been with me for a long time, but it really wasn't until my 40s that I figured out what it was.
Okay, cool. I need to look more into this because I've always done that on the choreography side, but
Yeah.
I I'm so jealous that you can do it when you just listen to stuff and you're just kind of like, I can see people's colors. That's amazing. So, was there like there my brain is like, what happened when you started telling people this? Because I've always felt like I'm crazy when I say stuff like that. So, what was people's reaction when you were like, this is what I do?" Like, your parents were probably like, "Okay, they don't give you more than you can handle, but what are we supposed to do here?" And so, like, especially when you're such a cool person and you have all these different things that are happening and you're like, "Well, I don't fit inside the normal box of, like, this is what an 11-year-old does. This is what
Yeah.
kids do." And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like, thank goodness you found exactly what you were supposed to do and you ended up in that spot so that we could have this conversation. But I know that there's somebody listening who's like, "Oh my god, that's me. I do that."
Yeah.
How did you start to talk about this in a way that made sense to other people outside of, "Okay, cool. Well, I'm just gonna do this by myself in my own little corner."
I think the thing I had going for me was that I was always kind of like a weird little kid. Like, I was always into things that maybe little kids are not into. Like, my dad had this book called The Mysteries of the Unexplained, and I was always pouring through that. I loved astrology. I loved learning about different religions. I loved art. I was like a flower child inside of a 13-year-old. Like, I just sort of
Mm.
always had these sort of eccentricities, I think, around me. And so fortunately I laid that foundation when I was younger. And so when I when I was older and then kind of started to tell people, you've got some blue around your head when I'm looking at you, they, I think, weren't as surprised. But I definitely think they were a little bit like, okay, we know you're into the woo, we know you're into the spirituality side of things, but that's new, that's different, and I think for me, it was always there. I just didn't have the vocabulary, I didn't have the opportunity to express it, I think art was always there for me as a kid, but it didn't come back to me until my late 30s, and so I think I had sort of packed it away for so long that when it started to come back out again, people were like, "I remember that about you. I remember those things, but now that you're an adult and you're actually doing this as your career, it was a little bit of I think, a surprise to them, but also they sort of began to recognize that it had been there all along anyway.
Yeah. So what happened that it went away for a little bit? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So I think I remember specifically having conversations with my parents. I think parents from a protective place are always like, well, are you going to be able to make a living doing this? The 401k, you want the steady paycheck, you want all of that. So when I was a kid and I was saying things like, I want to be a rock star, I want to be an artist, there was like, okay, cool. But how are you going to make money that way? And so I remember talking to my dad in the car. We were driving somewhere and he said, I think you'd be good at human resources. And I must have just internalized that, went to college,
Mm.
studied art, studied all sorts of, I changed my major like 4 times. I think I was trying to move in the direction of art, but I always sort of felt like maybe I shouldn't do that. That's not a safe
Mm.
place to be. Let me go do something that's going to give me a steady paycheck. And so after college, I went into banking. I did HR. I worked in these creative spaces, but I didn't have a creative outlet. And then in 2019, I sort of hit this point in my life where I felt like no amount of time off, no amount of sleep, no amount of vacation was going to make me feel fulfilled or make me feel like myself. And I started painting. And after that, it was like this world started to open up to me. And I realized this has always been me. I just didn't allow it to be. And
Mm.
so that's when I decided to leave a very lucrative job in human resources and set about on the pursuit of creating spiritual art.
I love that. You stepped into the energy that was you, and then
Mhm.
opportunities opened up, which I think is so we all feel like this is just our story, but I'm like, I'm relating here. I was planning on going to art school and then went and found out how much it costs and was like, "Can I make enough money to pay this off?"
Mhm.
And went to business school instead, and then fiddled in communications and got a leadership minor, and then now I'm back. The irony is that all of the people that started working with me, like my first really big client was an artist who had a gallery. And so I was like, this is like torture. It was like the universe was like, you almost made it there,
I know.
but here's like this extra little piece. And it's so funny the journey that you have to go through in order to like basically grow up into yourself.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
in that growing up, we're also, like, becoming the parent that our inner child needed,
Yep.
and I feel like we're finally at this point in the world where we're starting to do that. So, if you are sitting here and listening to this or watching this on YouTube or wherever you're finding us, and you're like, oh my God, there's this thing that I need to be doing. And I know my soul knows that I'm supposed to be doing this, but it doesn't make sense. It does. It will. You just have to work. You just have to do it. Because I think that's the thing is like we grow up and we're told, like my parents were always like, you should become a pharmacist. Pharmacists make a lot of money. And I was like, ew, I don't want to do any of that. So I was like, oh, I'll do business because business people make money, right?
Right.
And it's funny how it took me having a child who then took me out of the workforce to make me start being an entrepreneur. Like, I would have never started a business had
Wow.
I
Okay.
not had children. And so it's funny how it's like, what's meant for you will find you, whether you come to it willingly or kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The universe
I
is
agree
like
with that.
gentle parenting us. They're like, you can choose this one, and here's the consequences for it, or you can choose this one, and here's the consequences for this one. And one of them's easier and feels better and you get to decide which one that is for you.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
we all end up coming to it, but why not just come to it early on? So
Yeah.
this amazingness of you stepping away, but then coming back to it. And what was so you didn't have all of these things happening, wasn't enough vacation time, there wasn't enough sleep, you were burned out. And so what was that? Was there like a moment where you were like, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was that. I think I remember laying in bed one night and I think I hopped on Instagram and I saw a message from somebody that said that they were offering me my first solo show at like a First Friday event in downtown Raleigh.
Awesome.
And on that same day, I got promoted into an HR manager role with like a big salary. And I sat there looking at both of them, and I knew in my gut that the solo show was the thing that made me feel so excited. Like this
Mhm.
idea of being able to hang my work and talk to people about it. And then on the other hand, it was like this, great responsibility, this team, this income was going to be so great. But when I looked at both of them side by side, I felt like the universe was saying, okay, now, like, just like you said, you get to choose which one do you want. And I was so irritated. I was so annoyed at the time because I was like, this sucks. Like, why are you giving me both of these at the same time? I feel like you're making me choose. But I knew in my heart that the gallery, the opportunity there was so much richer for me and made me
Mm,
feel so much more excited and expansive. And the idea of just taking on more work. We had driven down to Disney World, my husband and I worked the entire drive down. It was like 11 hours and I was on my computer answering emails the whole time. And I'm like, I'm
mm,
on my way to vacation and I'm answering emails and I'm exhausted. And so in my mind, I just thought that's just more and more emails that I'm going to have to answer. And so that was the thing that made me go, I got to get out of this. I've got to figure out how to make art work for me. And like you said, we spend so much time like trying to grow up into ourselves that I
mhm,
think the universe doesn't waste a minute. I think everything that we learn along the way, all of those experiences, all of those jobs, they all prepare you for that returning to
mhm.
yourself. And so I felt like I think I have everything I need in order to make this decision. And it took a couple more months to kind of get my ducks in a row, but I felt like that was the moment that it was decided.
Yeah, it's that awesome foreshadowing, like, when we were watching people write a book and they're like, "How did you do that to where you, like, had me in" and then you're looking back, but then our real lives have that, and we're like, "How did that happen? And who planned that?"
Exactly.
It's like you look back and because I used to work at Disneyland, and I look back at that experience and I'm like, "But that's where I was supposed to be. That's what was
Hmm.
supposed to happen for me." And now I'm like, you do this double take of, "Oh, I see why that happened.
Yeah.
Okay, cool."
Yeah.
Now, all of us have a stack of things. I have a stack of things in my brain where I'm like, "Why did that one happen?
Uh huh.
Explain that one to me." And so it's funny how it always comes back around of like, "Oh, this is what I learned from this experience. This is how I can become the person that I'm meant to be, but I
Hmm.
needed to do this thing first in order to have the connection, have the background, have that experience so that I can help the people that I'm here to help." Because it
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Like looking in retrospect at you being in HR and then you doing all of these things to help people
Hmm.
and talking about these pieces, like the theme is you're there to care for people.
That's exactly right.
And so what does that look like in the art piece? And I know you were talking we were talking a little bit before this, and we kind of started talking about the connecting and the inner wisdom piece. So let's segue into that of like, how does these color pieces, because you have this amazing gift to see this for people, how does that help you, one, connect to them with your own inner wisdom, but then show them how to connect to themselves and discover that? And sometimes that's for the first time for people.
Yeah, absolutely. That was such a beautiful way to say that. I think all of that time I spent in human resources was kind of a cheat for what I was meant to do, which was to care for people and to help move them to a place where they can find healing and balance and support for themselves. And all of that time, doing human resources, doing coaching helped me learn how to communicate with people in a way that held space, in a way that was comforting, in a way that was non judgmental, but just giving them an opportunity to see themselves in a different way. And so when I sit down with somebody to do a portrait for them, there are sometimes challenging things that might come up of a place where they're feeling blocked or there's tremendous pain that they're living with and that maybe they're not willing to look at yet. And so being able, I think, to show someone a portrait of what I say, like your radiant spirit, like our spirits are radiant. We are spirits having a human experience. And I think sometimes we forget that. And so when you get to see a portrait of yourself in color, you look at yourself differently. And I think it gives you permission to acknowledge your divinity, to acknowledge your beauty, and to acknowledge that there's a higher purpose for all of us, that we're not just meant to slog away at jobs that steal our soul and take away our joy. And so I think all of that experience allows me to sit across from somebody and talk about things that are maybe difficult and hold space in a loving way to help them move through it and to give them hope for what life can look like on the other side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, I think the movie is called
Oh,
Plainsville,
yeah.
and you come into it and everything's black and white. And I remember my little kids, the first time that they saw a black and white movie, they're in their minds, the old days were black and white and now we're in color. And so it was funny, like as in this movie, they start to learn things about themselves, and really it's about like reading books. But the more information that they got, the more color entered the city. And there were some people who were like, no, we want this to stay black and white because black and white makes sense to us. And so you start thinking about it when you said, when somebody sees themselves in color, that was just so like what does that mean for people to see themselves in color? And are
Hmm.
people like when they're in the middle of that trauma or the things that are blocking them, is that them seeing themselves in a light that's not realistic? So like if we think about, when you're buying something online and it has that little caveat that says all colors might not be exact when
Yeah.
it gets to you because of the different way that the screen reads it. What if you're looking at yourself in a way that's not the right color?
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like the color purple. So the color purple doesn't actually exist, guys. So our brain reads a red wave and a blue wave, and it's supposed to read green, but because green is not saying anything, it shows up to us, it manifests itself as purple.
Oh
So
my gosh.
we know that purple doesn't exist, but it does. And it's funny to watch. Like, I've watched a few things because now I'm obsessed with this. And the comments are so interesting of like, okay, I could see how the science would like, and they're showing the science of like purple not existing.
Yeah.
And there's people who are like, "Well, I see it, so it has to exist." And I was like, "Oh, I see. Okay. That makes sense now." So what am I seeing in my life that I think exists? Fear or something that I can't do or something that I can't surpass, that to me it exists,
Uh-huh.
but in the reality it doesn't. And because I think that I see it, it exists for me. And so this is why when I was reading through all of your stuff, I was like, color. This is gonna be so good. So
Love that. I need to look more into that. You're blowing my mind now. I didn't realize that our brains crossed
mhm.
those colors. That's fascinating to me. And I always
Yeah.
hear about like on the other side, like in the spirit world, there are colors that exist there that we can't see in
Mhm,
this, realm. And I'm just blown away by like, how can there possibly be more colors than what we have? It's kind of
mhm.
incredible. It's
Yeah,
kind of
well, if you
incredible.
think about, like, the difference between color theory and light theory is that idea of, like, black is the absence of light, but then when we think about colors and pieces like that, like, Sometimes it's all the things create black. Sometimes it's the lack of things create black.
Yep.
And to me, that's always been like this weird phenomenon. Like I'm sitting in physics class. I remember this so crazily vividly in like my senior year, my junior or senior year of high school. And they're talking about all these color things. And I was like, so when all the lights together, it's white. And when there's no, it's black. But with color, when it's all the colors, it's black. And with no colors, it's white. I'm like, how is this opposite and it actually works? And
Right.
so we're looking at this prism and they're like, here's how this works, and here's the things you have to remember for the test. And I was like, but there's colors here. Why? Why is this splitting like this? And so I'm in my own little world.
I
And
love that.
my poor physics teacher was like, yeah, this is not going to be the thing for you. So
The
if you're
great
listening,
mysteries.
seriously though, I mean, I remember being in AP art and just like looking at people. And I think that this is why art is so fascinating to me because there's these critics that will be like, this is what art is.
Mhm.
And then you go to an art museum and somebody, because they did something cool and they died, they could have put their handprints all over a canvas and they're like, oh my gosh, this is life changing. And you're like, my 5-year-olds could have done that. Like, I don't understand. How is this the critically acclaimed thing? But then we do the same thing in our own lives. We're like, well, these people are so much cooler than I am. They've done the pinnacle of things because we're in the midst of it.
Mhm.
When really, there's so many things that we're doing in our daily life that are changing people's lives and we don't even realize it.
Right. Yeah.
And so, this kind of goes into this idea of the intuition and creating of like, when do we create things and how do we do this in a way that works for us? But so many people don't listen to their intuition either. I've been having this conversation. It's organically come up for the last couple of weeks with clients of like, I feel like I need to do this. And so I'm doing it now. And it feels very uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, that's your intuition. That's what that feels like. Let's train that.
Exactly. Mhm. Yeah, that is a big theme that comes up a lot in portraits for people too, is that we are so busy living our lives that we don't find time to just be still in order to hear how we're being guided. And color is one of those really lovely languages that we can all learn to speak that teaches us something about where we are at a point in time in our lives. And so, for example, like I'll go through my laundry for the last week or two and a couple of weeks ago, I made a story on my Instagram about this. Every single thing that was hanging to dry in my laundry room had stripes. Every single thing.
That's
Stripes of many
amazing.
colors. And stripes are about surrender. So here I had been wearing surrender on my body for 2 weeks in red and yellow and black and white and blue. And so I was trying to find a place of surrender in every single chakra center that was sort of trying to help me move through what this next evolution of whatever it was that I was going through at the time. And so here color was trying to communicate with me. And had I stopped for a moment to pay attention to it, I would have known that. But I had to see it in hindsight. And so I think there are lots of different ways that our intuition shows up, that our spirit shows up, that the universe shows up to guide us, that we just have to kind of give it a pause and look at it. And then suddenly we're aware of how supported we really are.
Okay, so stripes are surrender.
Hmm.
What are other things? Because my brain's like, oh, what about polka dots? And what about sparkles? And what about
Yeah. So vertical stripes are about ascension. So that's when you're trying to elevate into a next level. Circles and dots are about allowing. So allowing something to pass through or allowing something to happen, just letting it be. Colors all have different meanings. So I associate color with the chakra system. And so just an example, the other day I was chatting with somebody who was just wearing all black. And she kind of said to me, what color do you see for me? But I don't want to know. Don't tell me because I'm afraid of what you're going to see. And I don't want you to see anything. And I was like, you're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it. And so I knew just by what she was wearing, she was in a bit of a protective space. In
Mhm.
a, black is a color of mystery. It's a color of protection. It's a color of wanting to sort of blend in. And I saw pink around her, and pink is a color of our higher love in our heart center. So green is about self love, pink is about the higher love. And so I said, I think, that pink for you represents this desire to understand that you're being provided for by the universe, that you're loved and you're seen, and that you're in a position to receive love, but you're not sure what it looks like or where it's coming from. And instantly there were tears. So she, I think, sort of connected to this idea or had been sort of struggling with, what am I supposed to be doing here?
Mhm.
What's next for me? And so, like you said, there are things that we maybe can't see. So she was sort of looking at her life in a different way, maybe trying to protect or hide a little bit when there was this great love that was coming for her, that was available for her, if only she would be able to recognize it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in color that we can learn from, and it shows us where we're sort of hiding or maybe where we feel pain.
Yeah. So, out of all of these things that you know, because I'm sure that there's a laundry list, and my analytical brain just wants like a spreadsheet now. But what has been the thing that you've learned about color in this area of like, oh, this is what this means, and this is what it meant for me, that just blew you away? That most people wouldn't realize about color.
Um, I think color shows up for us before other things do. So, for example, we moved from New Jersey down to North Carolina a couple of years ago, and I had been I had been doing all the manifestation exercises. I was meditating on the bus from New Jersey to New York like every day. I was trying so hard to find a job in North Carolina that would help us move. So I was in this space of trying to shift from New Jersey to North Carolina to find another job. I was in a place of like a major identity shift.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but yellow had been showing up for me very strongly. And yellow is the color of your solar plexus, which is about your identity, it's about confidence, willpower. And so it's really when it shows up, it starts to represent a big change that's coming in your life about how you see yourself or how you want other people to see you. And
Mhm.
so all this time I'm doing all this meditation, I'm trying to manifest this move. I had started wearing yellow shirts. I had bought yellow pillows for the bedroom. I had bought yellow tea towels for the kitchen. And at the time, I didn't really notice why, but it showed up for me. And then that job offer came up and we moved. And so now I look back at that time in hindsight and go, oh my gosh, I was attracting yellow. I was calling it in because I was trying to change something about myself. So I always try to pay attention to like, oh boy, what color do I have the most of in my closet? What does that mean for me? And what's the shift that's coming? Or like what's the energy I'm trying to pull in to help me through this next season?
Yeah, my brain's like, what have I bought recently?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So
It's
it's
pretty
like
cool.
keeping
Or like
stock
what
of this.
colors?
So
Yeah.
everybody's like, Cabrina, we all know that you gravitate towards pink and yellows, but that's amazing. So we've talked a little bit about that inner wisdom, the intuition, and the signs, symbols that color can mean. And we kind of touched on the whole knowing yourself piece, but I think that this is an important piece for us to dive into still,
Mhm.
of knowing who you are. Because for those, I know that I've got some skeptical people because if you are attracted to me, you're both creative and but I'm more logical, which is how you ended up here. You're welcome. But knowing yourself when it comes to these pieces where you're like, okay, well, I like my favorite color is fill in the blank. And
Mhm.
so of course I'm going to buy a bunch of that. That doesn't necessarily mean anything about me. And so is that my life theme? Is that things that I need to be considering? How do I know that this is not just something that the two of you are really excited about and it's not something for me?
So I am of the firm belief that everything everywhere has a meaning. I don't think that a moment is wasted. I think it's all intentional and it all supports us in some way. So that's just
Mhm.
my like core belief for all the things. So I always think about like if you're attracted to a color, if you are drawn to that color, there's something about that, the psychological, the spiritual, the emotional, the physical
Mhm.
benefits or aspects of that color that is ministering to you in some way. It has to be,
Mhm.
because if you really look at it and you understand what does this color mean, you could absolutely associate it with something that you've either thought about, that you're going through, or that has
Mhm.
impacted your life in some way. And the opposite is true. If you are repelled by a color, if you're like, I have nothing orange in my closet at all, there's probably a reason, because orange supports a specific energy or emotional center or physical aspect of your body that maybe you're not willing to look at or you just are not quite comfortable with yet. So,
So what is orange?
Orange. So orange is our sacral chakra. It sits below the belly button and above our root, which is at the base of the spine. And the sacral supports our sense of creativity, expression, relationships, emotion, and sexuality. And so a lot of people it's also very energizing and uplifting. So if you're somebody who's drawn to like a gray right now, or you're like, I just can't get enough gray, well, for me, gray represents a lack of something. It's this neutral place of either not too much, not too little. It sits in a space of, it's like the liminal space of a color where you're kind of in the in between, but there isn't much that is happening around you. It's like a lack of color. And so that can be grief. That could be not quite knowing what to do. That could be sitting in a place of just not understanding sort of where you fit in. And so
Mhm.
if I see that somebody's sitting in a gray space, orange would be a great color to suggest for them because it's going to lift them up, energize, help them express, help them communicate, and help them sort of get in touch with the emotion or whatever's holding them back from being able to sort of emote, if you will, what's going on.
Cool. I totally selfishly ask because the people who have been listening to this podcast for a really long time know that growing up, I hated the color orange, and it started to slowly come into my vernacular. And so I'm sitting here like staring at this cup going, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's just funny because like I remember sitting in my living room before I got divorced and before I moved, and one of my friends was sitting across on the floor, and she was like, "Why don't you wear any orange? It would look really good on you." And I was like, "I hate the color orange. It's just that it's never been something that I've owned. I just don't like it. Like it reminds me of orange is the new black. It
Oh,
reminds me of
yeah.
that." And so it's funny how things have like slowly started to come into, and then one of my friends was like, "I thought you hated the color orange." And I was like, "I thought so too."
And you're inviting it back in?
It's so funny because it's like, and I wonder if it's kinda like your taste buds change every 7 years.
Hmm.
So there's some foods, like, I hated tomatoes growing up and loved shrimp, and now I cannot stand anything fish, but I absolutely adore tomatoes. And so, we know that this is something that happens, and so
Hmm.
I'm watching it happen with my own kids of, like, they loved this thing, and now they can't stand it, it, like, makes them gag. And I wonder if it's there's something similar that happens with colors over time of, like, "Okay, well, that wasn't for you right now, but it's for you now." Which saying it like that is so interesting. Sometimes I say stuff in my brain's like, "Oh, yeah, you've been learning that. It wasn't for
Yeah.
you before, but now it's for you."
Now it's for you. Well, it's
Mhm,
so interesting too because the number 7 is a number of completion. So
mhm,
it's fun to look at the way that our body sort of naturally goes through these cycles, and it like nature is just so phenomenal that yeah, this color like right now I don't wear a lot of yellow. I wore a lot of yellow a while ago, and now I moved on to green and blue. And so I'm moving into a space of my throat and my heart. And so I'm sort of living in that space right now. But next month it might be pink. Who knows? It's kind of fun to watch that
yeah,
happen and go, "Oh, what's this about? There's something here for me. Let me pay
mhm.
attention to it."
Yeah, and I think when you're drawn to it, it's almost like this is the thing that you're supposed to be working on.
Yeah.
I remember when crystals were first introduced to me, I was very much drawn to the blue ones, and I literally called the crystal shop because I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing." I was a pastor's wife for 10 years and then got divorced, and, so I called the crystal shop and I was like, "So, what do tell me what I need to know. Is this a normal shop? I just come in and I like get is there more to this? It sounds like there's more to it." And the lady's just sitting on the other side of the phone laughing. And she's like, "You just come in and you see what you're drawn to." And I was like, "Okay, logical Cabrina does not compute. What I'm drawn to it's sparkly. You had
Mhm.
me at sparkly." And so I went in and I tried to go, "Okay, deep breath. Which ones make the most sense?" And I was like, trying not to be logical about it at all, and I was like, I needed a couple drinks before I did this. And so I found myself, like, picking up all these blue ones, and I was like, "This is your closet, Cabrini, you can't just have blue stuff. You need other colors." And so I
Yeah.
started reading all the things about each one, and I was like, "What do I wanna call into my life?" I'm like, "I'm gonna do that." I still ended up with a bunch of blue ones, but then being a speaker coach and somebody who does podcasts and talks all the time, it made sense when I started to
Yeah.
learn more about it, and so I ended up getting a necklace that I wore for the longest time until I messed up the metal and it started making me green, that it was all about throat chakra. And the more that I've learned about this, like, my life theme is to help people be seen and heard. And so it's so funny that that's the thing that kept coming up for me.
Mhm,
And so I'm saying all this partly to be like, pay attention to this, and
mhm.
partly to go, I was skeptical too and had no idea what I was doing. And I walked into it and going, well, the worst thing that could happen is I've got sparkly rocks now.
Exactly. Look at all my beautiful rocks. I love that. I love that so much because I think crystals are like they're like the gateway
Mhm.
color thing for people. I started with crystals too. I was like, I just love these sparkly, shiny rocks and I want
Yeah.
them in every color. And
Mhm.
and so I think that's a really beautiful way to sort of play with it and to see
Yeah.
like what are you drawn to and then read about it. There's a reason why. I love that.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, I probably see this stuff more on the TikToks and the Instagram
I
because
call it tiki talkie too.
my friends, I love it.
I'm a tiki talkie.
Yes, my friends make fun of me because I add an E to the end of everything, and so if they hear somebody else say it, they're like, "Do you know Capri?" So, I have a lot of sayings that they're like, "You need to put these on shirts and stickers because you say them all the time." I was like, "Done and done," and they're like,
Do
"Yeah,
it.
like that one."
I'll buy the tiki talkie sticker. I'll put
Done
it on
and
my cup.
done, okay, we're gonna do it. It's just it comes out and I don't even realize it until it's starting to leave my mouth, and I'm like it's when your kids start saying your catchphrases that you're like, "I do have a catchphrase."
It's true. It's so true.
But that's gonna get me in trouble one day. We're gonna have a conversation about my kids and the weird things that they do on another day.
Oh, they're the
Oh,
best. They're the best teachers.
oh my gosh, seriously. My kids will come home and say things, and I'm like, "I was journaling about that." "Okay."
Huh?
Uh-huh, yeah, I need to work on that one. Thanks for reminding me. Or, my oldest daughter I had a little boy when I was, like, 8th grade. This is totally a segue, and then we'll get back to the conversation of color. But on kids teaching you things. So there was a little boy when I was in 8th grade, and you're starting to wear makeup and do this stuff, and he told me that I didn't come to school with makeup on. And he was like, "Is there something wrong with you? Are you tired?" And I was like, "No, I just didn't put makeup on today." He's like, "You should always do that." And it stuck with me, and I was like, "Okay." And so I'm having this conversation, and my oldest, who's now 10, would always go, "Mom, you look so much better without makeup. Mom, you look so much better without makeup. Why do you wear makeup all the time?" And I was like, my smart ass is like, "Because it's a social construct, and I don't have a choice, and I don't wanna wear makeup, but the world makes me do it." I was like, "You cannot ask me these questions early in the morning and late at night because it just
Right?
there's no filter anymore." She's like, "Okay, what was the story behind that?" And I was like, "Do I talk like this? Do I say this to you?" So, it's like it's this nice reflection of you see the things that you're doing wrong really fast, but then
Mhm.
you start to go, "Where did you learn this?"
Yeah. Because
And
they are
then
little sponges, and then they mirror
are
back for us so
mhm.
much. It's crazy.
Yes, and so it's so now that all of mine are old enough to like, really be in their personality, it's hysterical. They're like, "You wanna have a YouTube channel, mom? We're gonna do this." And I'm like, "Okay,
Go
that's
for it.
scary. We didn't have these things. How do I protect you?" But yeah, I think that it's part of knowing who you are and
Mhm.
seeing these things, and if you don't have kids in your life, like, what are people reflecting back to you?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, I love human design. There's so many things about it that I don't understand, but I love it because I read through things, and I have an app on my phone, and I keep all of my friends, like, Pokemon cards. I'm like, "Oh, hold on, let me go look what it has to say." And they're like, "How did you know that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. The
Yeah.
human design app knew."
That's so cool. I love
Mhm.
that. And the Enneagram, learning what your Enneagram
100%.
is. Yeah.
Do you know what your Enneagram is?
I'm a 9.
Oh, so fun. Are you a wing 1 or a wing 8?
I think a 1, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. But I'm
You
a
seem like a
9
1.
in everything, like numerology 9, my birth date is a 9. I'm a 9 everywhere.
9 is the highest number of manifestation too, which is crazy.
Isn't it? I know. I feel like I'm sitting on a gold mine of manifestation power, and I don't tap into it as much as I should.
I mean, I can tell you a couple things that I've tried recently that I'm like, "Oh, okay, maybe that's a piece of it." Like, when you're angry at somebody and you just record yourself talking, saying all the things to them that you wanna say, and you just, like, get it all out.
Uh-huh.
And then I went for a walk and I was like, "I have nothing to say." Like, how do I have nothing to say? This never happens. And it felt good.
You got it out.
Yeah, I was like, "Okay, that's what this is.
Yeah.
And then I was like, who else am I angry at that I can do this with?
Yeah. Seriously, like excavate, get it all out of
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
My brain's like Blippy. And all the parents are like, "Yeah, yeah, it lives in us." But, that's a nice way to kind of segue into the art as a mirror, because if our kids are a mirror, if the people around us are a mirror, if the things that we're doing are a
Mhm.
mirror, then what does that look like for art? So obviously, when you will go and paint somebody and you can
Mhm.
show them, "This is what it looks like. This is what I'm seeing when I'm reflecting you back to you."
Mhm.
How, one, you can tell us a little bit more about that whole process, because I know
Yep.
that there people who are interested in, like, "I wanna know what my colors are." Like the color guru lady who tells you what your colors are supposed to be that you wear.
Oh, yeah.
Fascinating. I have, like, the old 90s book from that,
Do
and I'm,
you
like,
really?
scrolling through trying to figure it out for myself, and I was like, "I'm just gonna tell somebody. I can't do it."
It's so cool. I have a friend who does that, and I wanna make an appointment with her to do the capes so I can see, am I a
Mhm.
summer, am I a winter? Yeah,
Yeah,
kinda
well, and
different, but
I had a piano teacher that I worked with who she was like, "Yeah, we used to do that for corporate." And I was like, "Stop, back up, say words again. You used color in corporate?" And she's like, "Yeah, nobody does it anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, but tell me more."
I want more of that.
And so she was like, "Yeah, there's this big thing of like personalities behind each of these seasons, and what does that mean, and all these color pieces." And I was like, "You're a piano teacher. You do music. You like color. What else cool thing should I know about you?" And so we would have these conversations, and I would just always like try and pick her brain about these things that she didn't want to tell me about because they weren't in style anymore. And so then I got slightly obsessed, which is a theme, obviously, because I've
I
said
was
it a
gonna
few
say, I
times.
go through that too. I'm like, "Oh, I'm currently obsessed with this."
Mhm.
Love it.
We just need a shirt that says "I'm in my obsessed era." And on the back it says "Ask me about what."
I love it.
And
I
then
think
it's
you
like,
should start a line of these things. I would be your biggest customer
I
probably.
seriously have a whole entire note in my phone, and my friends are like, "That should be a shirt. That should be a shirt." And I was like, "I just need to be like, I need to start actually drawing again so that
Yeah,
I can write it I can draw it myself."
you can design it. Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be so cool.
Yeah. So, sorry, segue.
No, you're fine.
But art as a mirror. So,
Mhm.
telling us, like, how you feel about doing that, and I'd love to know the first time that you did this, the self conversation you were having before
Yeah.
you showed the person their picture.
Yeah. So great question. So when I sit with somebody, so I don't sit with somebody while I'm doing the portrait. I will ask for a picture of somebody and I will sit and meditate on their energy. And I usually get an impression of 2 to 3 colors to start. And then I'll sort of, sit and meditate and work through the different chakras and pull out what symbol, what color. For example, the other day, somebody had yellow, no, they had purple bananas in their crown. So, which was
Mhm,
so interesting because bananas are yellow. So, I would expect to see something like that in a solar
mhm,
plexus, but I saw it up in their crown. So, that means something for that person. So, I'll go through and kind of pull out what are the symbols, what are the colors, and then I'll create their painting and then do a little write up about what messages were coming through. What were some of the symbols that were coming through in their piece, and sort of kind of put together the theme of here's where you dwell, here's what I see, here's what it means, here's the title. And then we
mhm,
hop on a Zoom call together and then I show you your painting, tell you all about it, answer questions, and then mail it out to you. So that conversation is really an intimate one because those colors that I see for you sort of show me where you might be feeling stuck or blocked or want to feel a little bit out of balance. And so that color sort of reflects to you where you might be feeling like you just need a little bit more support or you just haven't been able to really see it in a way that's like helping you move through something. And so oftentimes we'll have a conversation about what that is, what it means for you, and what are some tools or ways that you can use that color to support you in a more positive way. And that's really powerful for people because I think number one, they get to see themselves in an abstract, sort of colorful way. And then number two, they're leaving with messages about who they are, how much potential there is in their lives to see themselves in a more powerful, loving way. And then to be able to take that and let that painting minister to them, whether they hang it in their office or their home, or they just keep, I have people who'll take a picture of it and put it as their wallpaper on their phone so that they see themselves all the time expressed in that radiant color.
Yeah, I love that. So what did the purple bananas end up? being?
So the purple bananas were interesting because this person was going through a major shift. They had just moved and the thing that kept coming up to me was that you're supposed to do it differently this time. You're supposed to see it in a different way.
Mm,
And so the purple bananas were about looking at things in a different way, but also that they would show up in a way that weren't expected, that they would
mhm,
actually work out in a way that they couldn't possibly conceive. Like purple bananas, you wouldn't see out in nature. So don't have an expectation about what it's supposed to look like because it won't look the way you think it should.
This two things that this brings to mind is that one, James Wedmore, who we met through and is amazing, so you can ask me about him later. He said one thing that he was sitting at a stoplight when he was in, I think, his late 20s, early 30s. And he was like, the thing that I'm doing now didn't exist when I was in high school. So no wonder I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up because the thing
Yeah.
that I was doing didn't exist. And I remind myself of that fairly often because I feel like all of us are doing stuff like what you're doing didn't exist.
No, I would never have thought about even possibly doing this.
Yeah, what I do didn't exist when I was in high school, and everybody's like, "What do you wanna be when you grow up?" And I was like, "A unicorn?" And we did it! We did it! We became unicorns.
We did. I don't think we're meant to do things that fit on a business card. I think
Yes.
we're supposed to be people who have diverse interests and strengths, and we do all sorts of wonderful, amazing things that you cannot distill down
Mhm.
into a business card. It's hard.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
struggled for forever on what to call myself, and I
Yeah.
was having a conversation with a client yesterday and was like, "This is an ongoing struggle for me, so I can't necessarily tell you that there is an end result here, but this is where I landed. So let's just land somewhere so that people can understand the beginnings of who you are."
Right.
And so I'm like, it's like dating. I always tell myself, it's just like when you go on a date, Kabrina. You can't give all the information all at the front. You got to
Mhm.
give them just a little package of information, and then they have the pamphlet of you, and then every time that they get to see you, which is why
Mhm.
we have to show up more, is they get little bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they get it's like going through Costco, but by the end of the Costco, then they know you.
The treasure hunt. It's the treasure hunt.
I like that. It's kinda like, I don't know if your kiddo watched, what is it called? Jake and the Neverland Pirates,
Yeah.
where they're like, "Grab it and go!" They grab the coin.
Yes.
So,
Amazing
the random things.
that we remember. I know, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I speak in, we were talking before the podcast that it's like, "What do you run on?" I run on Bluey and iced coffee. So, references, you're
Mhm.
I feel like I should put a caveat in the ones where I talk about it a lot of like, in today's episode, we talked about parenting things that were random caveats. Here in this episode, we talked about Taylor Swift, which I'll come around to in a minute because I think that the color theory in her stuff is really phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to see if there was anything else that you were like, "Oh my gosh, Kabrina," because I know that we're almost at the hour mark. I definitely would love to touch back on this, or if you're like, "Hey, we're good here. We'll talk about Taylor Swift, and then I'll ask you the question that we ask everybody on the podcast." I promise it's not a hard one. It's more of a fun get to know you one.
Awesome.
So, is there anything else that you're like, definitely from what we talked about?
No, I think just pay attention to color, like notice it. Notice what color you are wearing the most this week or this month, and notice when you're in a store shopping for something new, what color you're attracted to and what color you will not pick up. And
Mhm.
then look it up. Look it up and see what it means for you. I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of
absolutely.
power in that.
And so we'll touch on the Taylor Swift thing really quick because it was something that came to mind of this idea of like when songs mention color. And
Mhm.
so I love Taylor for the fact that she is very consistent with her colors. Like blue is always sad.
Mhm.
And so what does that mean? So she, if you listen to the song Red on the Red album, it's all about, this love was red and
Uh-huh.
then it was maroon, and then it was all these different shades of red, and we're all going, "Oh, it makes sense now."
Yeah.
So, kinda what are your thoughts on that, and what should people look for when they're like, "This is my favorite song?"
Yeah, that's a good question. So I feel like with Taylor specifically, and I know that you can go down the rabbit hole really deep with all of the symbols and the messages and the things that she has created, this like massive what is it? It's like a treasure hunt, I guess,
Mhm.
of things that she puts in her music and her lyrics and her like her album.
Yeah,
What are they
all of her
called?
Easter eggs.
Yeah, all the Easter eggs,
Mhm,
thank you. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think if Taylor probably has synesthesia or has something like that to use that much color in her work. And so she probably has her own sort of dictionary for what they mean for her. But
mhm,
to think about things like this love is red, you think of red as being a color of passion, a color of romance, a color of fire, a color of sexuality and
mhm,
expression. It's about family. On the spiritual side, that's the root chakra. That's about your sense of support, your sense of stability, your family, your tribe, if you will, and financial security. So there's probably sort of mixed meaning in there for her. If
mhm,
this love is red, maroon for me, I go back to like that's an out of balance root chakra. That's
mhm,
something that is leaning more towards worrying more about physical appearance or worrying more about like the physical safety, security, or feeling like rooted in somebody. And so
mhm.
connecting like your own sense of self in with another person would probably be more maroon. And then if you tip it on the other side, you get some into like a pinky, reddy color is going to be adding white to it. And so that might be an over amplified root chakra. So there's probably lots of different ways that you can look at the way that she uses lyrics and uses color in that too.
Yeah, and so it's paying attention. The reason that I wanted to bring this up is for those people who are like, "Well, color's not really it's not the thing that calls to me."
Hmm.
But music is my thing. I live in Nashville, so, music
Yeah.
is my thing. So if there's a song that you're like, this does mention a lot of colors. Okay, I never realized how
Yeah.
many colors were in this."
Yeah.
Just thinking, like, is that something that you're attracted to for one reason or another? Like, Judah and the Lion is one of my favorite bands,
Yeah.
and I was attracted to them because of the fact that they were so colorful, and then they have a whole entire you'll enjoy these people. They have a whole new album called The Process, and it's super colorful, and it looks all pretty. It's all about, like, going through the grieving process,
Oh, wow.
and it's amazing, and it's such, like, a soul fulfilling album. But
Hmm.
they do it from this they come in through color as the side door to
Oh,
grief.
I love this. I'm gonna have to check this out.
And so we're gonna have lots of conversations. So if you guys have any questions for Heather and you're like, "Cabrina, you didn't ask this one, you danced around it, but you never actually got there, and this is the question that I have," go on Spotify and you can ask those little questions or leave your comments or, say what you wanna say and then sing the song to us. But then, Heather, we have one question that we ask everybody at the end of the podcast. And that is if you were a warning label, what would yours be?
Oh my gosh. I love this. I would be, caution a little crazy.
Oh, see, I love it. I feel like everybody who comes on here has one that I'm like, yeah, that's why I like you.
I think that's so funny. My husband jokes that, like, I am somebody who is constantly bringing boxes out of the attic and opening them up. Like, "What's inside this one? Oh, that's kind of fun."
For doing that as a kid, like your parents would be like, that's the garage, stay out of there. And I'm like, but why is this in here? And then they're like, this is the coolest thing. And they're like, that's trash. And I was like, why is it in a box?
I think he thinks that, like, I store up all these boxes of weird and, like, woo in my head, and every every year or so, I'm like, "Hold on. What's inside this one now?" I just keep unpacking a little bit more of the woo each year, I think, so.
You are learning the amazing things that are inside of you. And in the process, it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. We're healing our inner child and doing these
Mhm.
things. Like I just, right before we got on this podcast, Gary V has his V and Friends, which is his like cartoon version. I want a cartoon version of myself that I can
I
just
love it.
put out into the world, and I've said this 2 days in a row now, and I was like, "Okay, this is something now." Anyways, but it was all about the dad was upset that his kid had drawn on the wall again, and the imaginary friend was like, "Yeah, but remember what happened when your parents got upset about the fact that you drew on the wall?" And he said, "I got in a lot of trouble and I never drew again."
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "I can't not share this."
Mhm.
And then we had this conversation, and I was like, "Oh, look, synchronicities."
Love it.
Look for the things, look for the color. Heather,
Mhm.
tell us how people can connect with you. And you have a freebie, right?
I do, yeah. Yeah. On my website at heathereck.com/thank you, I've got a couple freebies out there, but one is a color and chakra guide. So if you're curious about color and chakras, that's like a good intro for you. And I love to connect with people on Instagram, and I'm there at Heather Eck Artist.
Okay, awesome. And definitely go check out her stuff. It's really amazing. And then if people were interested in doing the paintings with you,
Hmm.
you give us like the URL or like a quick blurb of where they can find that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're on my website at heathereck.com. If you click on spirit portraits, it'll take you right there. And then I also have a special discount code for your listeners too. If they're interested in one,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, they can save 25% off with VIP 25
Okay, I love it. So remember, it's heathereck.com. It's
portraits.
Spirit Portraits and VIP 25. So
Yeah.
if you're interested in what we were talking about today, go check that out. Check out Heather. Let us know what questions you have. If you're like, oh my God, I need this answer. Either ask Heather on the gram or come and
Yeah.
ask it on Spotify. And then if we have several of them, I'll just be like, Heather, you want to come and hang out with me and talk about random little kid references that I remember? And we'll do this again.
Awesome.
Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast with me and for going on this fun adventure this morning. And we will see you all next time. Thank you for listening to the Top Shelf Creator podcast. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Top Shelf Creator. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we would love to see you share it with a friend and give us a review wherever you listen to help us reach more creators and entrepreneurs just like you.